The husband stood in our kitchen under the soft, guilty glow of the pendant light and said, "No more lies, Hannah. I'm done. I promise." He'd said it the way you say, "I love you" at the end of a fight, too fast, as if speed makes it true. He reached for my hand, palm damp, and added, "The therapy group helps me. I'm not giving that up, but I'll be transparent from now on." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe the man who fixed squeaky hinges and made me lemon tea when my throat hurt. So I nodded and squeezed back. Okay, no more lies. I didn't know then that we were making vows in two different languages. It started a year earlier, when his panic attacks got worse. He was crying in the shower sometimes, pressing his forehead to the tile like he was bargaining with it. He tried a therapist, then another. When a coworker whispered about a healing group that didn't label you, it sounded like a lifeline instead of a warning. He called it a circle at first, then a community, then, with a softness that made my skin prickle, the work. Their rules were simple, he said. Bring cash for the retreat, no cards, because privacy. Turn off your phone to be fully present. Don't share other people's stories outside the space. It's about safety, he told me, kissing my temple. It's not secrecy. But secrecy, it was what it felt like when he started coming home at midnight, smelling like sage and someone else's perfume. When he began wearing a corded bracelet, he said it was for grounding and flinched if I touched it. When weekend intensives popped up on our calendar as gray blocks labeled service. The first retreat he attended cost $600 in cash. He handed me an ATM receipt and shrugged. "Worth it," he said, and I wanted it to be. He looked lighter when he came back, like he'd set down a weight. He moved more softly in our home, smiled more, and once, washing dishes, he hummed. I hadn't heard him hum in months. Then came the second retreat, the third. He refused to show me the website. "It's more of a community text thread situation," he said. Later, I found out the website was a Google Doc with a mountain photo and a list of what to bring: loose white clothing, flowers, and cash in an envelope labeled with your rebirth name. "Your what?" I asked. He laughed. "It's like a meditation thing. Don't be judgy." He started talking in phrases that didn't belong to him. "Everyone is exactly where they are in the work," he'd say, when I asked why we were skipping my niece's birthday for a candle-lit dance practice. Or, "Shadows demand tending," if I pressed about finances. When I asked for a receipt, he put both hands on my shoulders and told me, "Money is just energy trying to move." "Then it's moving very fast out of our account," I said, but it came out small. The first real crack? A photo. It was a selfie sent to the wrong person. I was in bed scrolling when my phone lit up with a picture from his number. A room lit by a halo of Christmas lights taped to a triangle on the wall. My husband, barefoot, in white linen, stood on a chair while a woman placed a flower crown on his head. The camera caught her face at a flattering angle, cheekbones, dark hair falling over bare shoulders, eyes lifted to him like he was a sunrise. The caption read, "Ascended, our leader." The narration stared at the screen until my eyes watered. Then I texted back, hands shaking. "Wrong person?" 3 dots. Then nothing. He walked into our bedroom 5 minutes later, a white rope bracelet peeking under his sleeve. "Hannah," he said, already grimacing, I can explain. Who is she? He swallowed. Jade. She guides the women's work. I lead the men now. He said it like good news, like a promotion. The photo wasn't for you. I'm sorry. It's context matters. What context makes you wearing a crown with another woman touching your face okay? He sighed, that condescending exhale that turns love into furniture. This is ceremonial. You don't understand the frameworks. I slept on the couch that night and dreamed of triangles. After 2 days of tense silence, we sat at the table. Are you sleeping with her? I asked, staring at the wood grain. No, he said quickly. Too quickly. We have a bond. It's not sexual, it's transpersonal. I hate how well I remember the word. I didn't leave that week. Part of me was afraid of what leaving would confirm. So I did the careful, quiet things. I checked our bank withdrawals and found patterns. $600, $600, $1,200. I asked the coworker who'd introduced him what the group was called, and she froze. We don't say names, she whispered, like someone might be under the table recording us. It's safer. I found the name anyway, etched into a tiny logo at the bottom of that mountain photo Google Doc, the Lumen family. The Instagram page had 12 posts and a following of 80 people, who commented fire emojis under photos of people in white staring into a candle. In the tagged photos, I found them. My husband, eyes closed, hands outstretched. Jade, smiling at the camera in a gauzy dress. A circle of people kneeling around a triangle drawn in salt on the floor. And then, a video, briefly posted and deleted, caught by a stranger's story. My husband and Jade pressed forehead to forehead, chanting. His hands held her waist. Breathwork, the caption read. Under it, a comment, the polarity is hot. I started gathering like a storm. Screenshots, ATM withdrawals, texts from him. No phones tonight, I'll be late. A Venmo request from a woman named Mother, $350, with the note for wood plus altar supplies. Receipts from our shared cleaning robot named Molly that he cost borrow a storage unit. In the unit, I would later learn, there were boxes labeled Initiation, full of white scarves and Shorpies, and a big glass jar labeled Give What You Can. When I confronted him again, he put his head in his hands. We don't ask for money, he said. The jar? Offerings. Different. Did your offerings include your morals? He looked up slowly. I told you, no more lies. You didn't tell me the truth. That's not the same thing. The breaking point came from a mom at the yoga studio. She pulled me aside after class, brow furrowed. Hannah, are you going to your husband's event Saturday? The Lumen family thing in the old theater? Jade invited me, said there would be an initiation, very public. Bring friends. My chest tightened. A public initiation meant witnesses. It meant proof. So I RSVP'd for 2, and I called my sister and my cousin who is a teacher and good at organizing a crowd, and I messaged a local Facebook group for families affected by high-control communities, because that's what they call cults when you're hoping people will listen. Saturday, I wore white and red lipstick like a talisman. My sister, Lucy, wore black and carried a tote bag like she might buy vegetables afterward. Inside the old theater, the stage was set with a triangle of pillar candles and a wooden chair draped in linen. A speaker played breathy music. Jade greeted people at the door with a whispery hug. When she saw me, her eyes widened, and then smoothed over like calm water. "So glad you're here," she murmured. "We always welcome skeptics." My husband stood backstage, nervous and royal in his white shirt. He saw me and smiled with his mouth closed, like a child caught holding a cookie he denies taking. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Keep your promise," I whispered. "No more lies." The ceremony began with a guided meditation, then testimonials. People stood and spoke about shedding shame, about finding family. It would have been beautiful if it hadn't been designed to own them. When it was my husband's turn, Jade touched his wrist and introduced him as our masculine pole, the anchor for our healing. He took the chair, and she stood behind him, hands hovering over his head like she was warming them by a fire. "This is where we remember who we are," he intoned, "where truth means devotion." I walked to the aisle with my tote bag and my heart pounding so hard I felt it in my gums. "Then let's be devoted to truth," I said. My voice echoed, surprising even me. Jade smiled too widely. "We'll hold questions later, sister." It isn't a question. I climbed the stairs and stood on stage, hands shaking. Lucy followed and handed me the bag. I pulled out a stack of printed screenshots, photos, and receipts. "We can talk about breath, about shadow work, about whatever language you've borrowed," I said. "But language doesn't change reality. You demanded cash and silence. You crowned my husband leader while sleeping with him and then told him it was transpersonal. You call this therapy without a license? You call it family while isolating people from theirs." Murmurs rose like wind. My husband stood, face drained of color. "Hannah, stop," he said. I held up the photo from the deleted story, his forehead touching Jade's, hands at her waist. I held up the Venmo note to Mother and the storage unit receipt. I held up the Google Doc with the triangle and the rebirth name line. This is not a safe container. This is a cult. Jade reached for the mic, but Lucy stepped between us. From the audience, 3 people, 2 moms and a man, stood and said, "I was told not to tell my husband. I was asked for $900 cash. My wife stopped calling her mother." The room cracked. You could hear it. One of the young girls in white started crying. A man behind her whispered, "I can't do this," and took off his cord bracelet. Jade's calm slipped. "All that is not love is fear," she said sharply, "and fear resists transformation." "Or fear recognizes manipulation," I said. Security moved toward us, confused. Before they reached the stage, the theater manager, bless the local Facebook group, stepped from the wings. "Event's over," she announced. "We've had complaints, and you don't have the proper permits for whatever this is." She gestured at the open flame triangle, and absolutely no open flames. People started leaving. Some tore off their bracelets. Some clung to Jade, eyes wet. My husband wavered like a man in a small boat. He looked at me, then at her. "Hannah," he said, voice breaking, "can we talk?" I met his eyes, the eyes of the man who'd once cried in the shower and the man who'd learned how to lie in poems, and I said, "Yes, but not here." We left through the side door. The air outside felt like waking up. Lucy squeezed my hand until it hurt. "You were fierce," she whispered. In the days that followed, the Lumen family tried to regroup online. But families talked, and screenshots traveled faster than breathy music. The theater canceled future bookings. 2 members filed complaints after realizing their donations had been rented for Jade's apartment. A local therapist posted a thread about the difference between support groups and coercive control. The Instagram page went dark. At home, we did the slow work. He slept in the guest room. He cried, and this time he didn't have a script. I wanted to be special, he admitted once, voice a rasp. They told me I was chosen, and I liked how that felt in my chest. Being loved isn't the same as being worshipped, I said, and devotion without honesty is just control wearing a white dress. We went to a licensed therapist together, one with a degree on the wall and a couch that smelled like nothing. My husband apologized without poetry. He wrote a letter to the people he'd recruited, not asking them to come back to him, just telling the truth about what he'd done and why. He returned what he could. He blocked Jade. He took off the bracelet and left it in a dish by the door like a dead snake. "Do you forgive me?" he asked one night months later, tracing a circle on the table with his thumb. I took a breath. Forgiveness is less like a switch and more like weather. I told him the truth. Some days, maybe. Some days, not yet. But I believe people can walk out of rooms they built for themselves. If you keep walking, I'll keep watching. We kept our promise better in the aftermath than we did in the marriage before. No More Lies turned out to be a daily practice, the kind with receipts and ugly pauses and saying, "I'm tempted to tell a better version, but here's the real one." If I learned anything, it's that betrayal wrapped in spiritual language cuts twice, once at the bone of trust and again at the muscle of meaning. But I also learned how strong it feels to stand up in a room and say out loud, "This is not love." Sometimes, on quiet mornings, I still find dried wax in the cuff of a white sleeve shoved in the back of a drawer. I leave it there, not as a relic, but as a reminder. Devotion is not surrendering your mind. Love doesn't require silence, and promises mean nothing until they're lived out where everyone can see them, under bright lights, with no smoke, no triangle on the floor, and both hands empty.